continuously aligning work to goals and execution to strategy. Complicated situation, isn't it? A topic that many struggle with, including myself. Um, However, our hints and advice in this area are often well received by our customers who use our app for that purpose sometimes. And so we thought, why not share this with a broader audience here? So I'm going to work through a tip or two how to use Jira for this purpose. But to start with, very quickly, a bit more about me. Who am I? I used to work for Atlassian for almost a decade, and so did my co-founder. And we started probably 1.5 years ago, roughly, or a bit more, a company called Franz Software, and we're developing a Jira app called JXL, which we launched roughly a year ago. And it's been off to a great start. It's very well received and reviewed, and we made the silver marketplace partner tier within just 8 months after launching. Enough about us. Excuse me. I'm here to talk about project management, and project management is, I suppose, planning, tracking and steering work, right? So project managers, project portfolio managers, program managers, also product manager roles, they're facing similar challenges doing agile project management at scale. Essentially, if you're down here, too easy. If you're down there, sure, cool story. We've learned how to do agile with very religiously implemented frameworks, or a bit more loosely over the past 10 to 20 years. So there's Scrum, there's Safe, there's Less and whatnot. Up here, if you're large and you're essentially in a waterfall approach, I think most people here would agree that's not the sweet spot. Up here, you also have these frameworks at hand, but how life goes, how things are, sometimes they're difficult, and in this case, I think they're really, really challenging. If you're a very large organization, you want to be truly agile, it gets complex, it gets very involved, and that's essentially, in my opinion, for a few reasons. So and I'm not telling you anything revolutionary here, that you're looking at the project management triangle, essentially. There's scope, there's budget, there's time, and there's eventually quality or lack thereof. And just to look at scope for a second, like, commonly what I see is keep the lights on sort of scope. Maintenance work and so on isn't planned for or funded properly in terms of capacity or resources. Or scope creeps in from this side by customers wanting features or wanting fixes, and you like your customers and you do them, but that takes time from other work that you want to get done, and in the end, the outcome is needles don't move. That could have a bunch of reasons. Just to mention a few here, I mean, of course, bad planning and tracking and steering is often the reason, and or you have what looks like a perfect plan, but you communicate it not in the way, initially and continuously during the execution in a way that helps teams, actually. Teams in an agile environment are autonomous to a large extent, and so they can lose context if they're not in the picture. They often define scope themselves, right? In an agile world, they make decentralized investment and trade-off decisions and things like that. So if they lose context, that often leads to complete misalignment with the teams around them. which obviously doesn't help. And then I often see things, the solutions are often ceremonies or artifacts, right? By ceremonies, I mean like meetings at certain cadences. So you have your quarterly planning meetings, your strategy alignment reviews, your status updates every week, maybe even, and that sort of thing. And the result of that is a lot of people not doing what they like, and not adding value because they're sitting in meetings. The other thing here that helps, and again, kind of stating the obvious, is sort of documents. Hopefully in an agile scenario, living documents that answer questions such as these 5. So you want to have a vision stated, right? You want to, so why do you even exist and do what you do? A mission, what are you striving towards? Maybe you have postulated some values, how to do all that. You have everyone, especially in large organizations, has some notion of a strategy, and that's usually divided in themes or pillars or this or that. You have goals and metrics, which are somewhere between the how and the what, I suppose. So that those could be objectives and key results. OKR, sorry, it could be just a set of loosely phrased goals and some KPIs. And the bodies of work are usually organized, so areas of sort of focused work defined over a period of time. And they're called programs or initiatives, things like that. And further down, more granularly, you would have concepts that map to entities in Jira, even like projects and epics and tasks and so on. Then you obviously have your organizational structure. You have divisions or groups or subgroups or undergroups or overgroups, whatever, teams of teams. You've been creative, inventing names for these teams, even like squads or tribes or chapters, and but at the end of the day, there's people and they need to work together in teams, and then teams work with teams. You have your sprint, which looks a week or 2 or a month ahead maybe, and you have other planning and execution horizons that also don't make things easier. In Agile, there are always you're trying to deliver value incrementally, and you have sort of build, measure, learn cycles with frequent releases, and so that often results in sort of feedback and data that suggests that other things should change, and so on. So this is a complex landscape to navigate, isn't it? And the first sort of document that people have in larger organizations is some sort of plan. That's at Atlassian we used to call it, we had different names for it over the years. I think at some point it was a VTFM and some acronyms. And these sort of plans, I just call them try to answer all these questions for everyone in a very succinct way. How they're done is usually in a slide, so they should be a bit more visually appealing, so people get and stay interested and focused and really learn these things and understand them. And that's usually done in PowerPoint or in Apple Keynote or Canva or something like that. You also have a document or multiple, an organigram that sort of makes sure everyone understands who is responsible for what and how they relate to others, and how to contact them, and so on. Your Workday or that sort of tool will provide that for you. You always have documents that you could call roadmaps. Like they could be a few boxes on a timeline, all the way to some very intricate Gantt chart or multiple there of charts. And but you always want to visualize what is meant to get done or did get done over time. What you can use for that is, and I would recommend that, is the advanced roadmaps feature in Jira Premium or Enterprise editions. It's really a great feature. It actually has been co-founded by my co-founder, current co-founder Hannes. So this is also an ex-marketplace app that was acquired by Atlassian and is now part of Jira software. You always have, or actually not always, I think this is something that is sort of an emerging trend maybe, but you have status reports. I'm not aware of really good tools that do that help you there. I've seen Excel or Google Sheets or Smartsheet or Airtable, that sort of stuff used for it, but it is really a different format, and I can recommend you to check out Atlas, which is I think it's still in beta, an Atlassian product that is meant to do just that. It's not very deep in terms of features at this stage, which is to be expected, but it's pretty neat, and yeah, check it out. I liked it a lot. And finally, in terms of documents and formats, you have sheets. There's spreadsheets everywhere. In all organizations, at least in some sort of disciplines, you will find work organized and planned in sheets. Maybe it's the work itself, maybe it's just the capacity for it or the resources. More often than not, it is actually used to also in not only in a planning sort of way to calculate things and to check things, but also to communicate. So these sheets are sometimes very colorful and have images in them, and then people are sometimes even asked. So it's also used as a form, asked to provide status updates in their sheets. What the problem now is with all these different artifacts and tools you use is that I think you should use the tools that are best for the job, definitely, but a challenge can be that Jira is your source of truth for sort of execution, at the very least for your engineering and support IT sort of teams, but also more and more commonly for non-tech teams such as marketing or finance or legal or whatnot. And then you have your other tools where there's more of the planning going on, and also that might be adjusted during the execution. And this is sometimes not helping in terms of transparency for people who actually get stuff done. There is a disconnect emerging over time. I've seen that again and again in different organizations actually, and so that's the planning versus execution thing. Often the sort of rupture is also between engineering and PM, or like anyone working on the actual software versus people planning the features, that sort of thing, or between short and long term. So time horizons, so you have your sprints or a few months or quarters planned out in Jira, but it doesn't map well to your overall strategy, or what was that OKR again, or the theme I'm working towards. And that's not beneficial, obviously. The key to long-term agile planning, Atlassian says, is keeping things in sync. And that what's mentioned here is project details or estimates or roadmap and that sort of thing. But really, I would take that much further and say everyone should always understand how their work does or does not contribute to some specific overall goal, the strategy, maybe even the vision. Again, spreadsheets often, I think, are pulled into this to try to do all that. So of course, there's Excel, Google Sheets, Apple Numbers. There's Smartsheet and Airtable and Microsoft Lists and Google Tables more recently. There's a bit of a trend for tables, And in products like Asana and Monday and what is it, ClickUp, you have that as well. And it reached the tech, more tech savvy space as well, which as an example, GitHub's issue feature has a table view now, and Trello obviously has. And there's in Jira work management in cloud, there is a rudimentary sort of list view that you can use there. But we thought, why would the overall like Jira community miss out on the table trend? And they don't actually have to. This is where JXL comes in. If you extend your Jira with JXL, you'll get sheets right inside Jira, looking at your live data in real time. You'll be able to sum up progress, ladder it up all the way hierarchically to your themes or objectives and that sort of thing. And of course, I'll show you what I have in mind here now. I should start by saying that I have here in Jira settings, I have created a few issue types, an objective, program, and initiative. So that's going to be important for a bit later when I jump into the hierarchical laddering of work in a sheet. But first I'm going to just talk through a few fundamentals of how sheets work. So when you have JXL installed in Jira, you'll have a sheets item here in the sidebar. So in the project navigation sidebar. And this is obviously how a sheet looks like. You can create more, as many as you like, delete them, duplicate them to create new ones, and then switch between them here. You can star the ones that are relevant personally for you, for quick access, and yeah, you can have as many as you like. And so now I'm going to actually edit this sheet. Just think of a sheet as a board or a queue. So you can define, first of all, you give it a name. And then you can define the sheet scope. The scope, what we call the scope, is essentially the set of issues that's meant to be listed in the table. And you see here, this is our smart composer bar, and it helps and gives good hints in terms of like what how to put together a valid JQL statement. So that's really easy even for people who are usually a bit intimidated by JQL. We're also working on a basic version of this where you can assemble the sheet scope with drop-down menus. And obviously what you see here now is the rows are your issues and the columns are your fields of the issues or other issue related data. I'm gonna show you here. You can add as many columns as you like, and what's available in terms of column content is all your Jira system or standard fields, all your custom fields, and also a bunch of what we call smart columns, like computed values such as time between something, time since, time in status, number of some entity, and all sorts of things. Also interesting new feature recently shipped is merged columns. So if you're familiar with team managed projects in Jira Cloud, they have fields that are separate entities. They don't share the same scheme. And so obviously they would, if you add the fields from, let's say, 50 different team managed projects to your sheet, then there would be 50 different columns. And these merged columns consolidate all these in one column. So essentially, if something has the same name and the same field type, then it'll be consolidated across both team and company managed projects in in Jira. So that's how you add columns. You can also remove them like this, and you can move them around. You can rearrange them. This is very much a what you see is what you get sort of editing experience, and the way you create your perfect table view. Mine was already perfect, so I'm not going to save this now. I'm going to cancel, and this is it. How do you work in a sheet now? As you would expect, you can inline edit things. Put something in here. Done. You'll see this. You can always click on the issue key here to see the full issue view card, and you see the change was validated and applied immediately. This is nonsensical though, so I'm going to say Command Z, and it's undone. So all the keyboard shortcuts that you would expect work: copying, pasting, undo, redo, and so on. You can also navigate through the sheet with your cursor keys, or mark stuff, and so on. Now, other cells, sort of field types, obviously work a bit differently. They need a menu, drop-down menu like this. You can transition issues, color swatches, date picker, user picker, a multi-select, and so on. You get it. They all have different sort of ways of editing. What they all have in common, or most of them, the editable ones anyway, is that you also can copy and paste into them. So let's say, this issue here is a medium priority, and so what I'm going to do is either I right click and say copy, or I just say Command C, and I mark a few other ones, paste that, and that's it. These issues are updated. Those were, I think, 6 issues. You can do that with 600 or 6,000. It's no problem. So it's a much more convenient sort of feature for bulk editing sort of operations. You can also, by the way, copy across columns and all sorts of things. Cool. So in addition to that, you can create issues in the table, pick the issue type. The project should go into summary, create, or go for the full dialog and say, add more details there. You can filter within this sheet now. So column filtering also works as you would expect. There's a date picker here, multi-select, text, and so on, depending on the field type. You can also sort things and freeze and so on. Down here, there's always displayed what sort of features are currently enabled. I'm going to reset the freezing, so we're back to this. So that's the very basics of how this works. And now, how can we make this? How can we use this to make it a bit more transparent for teams? Bottom looking up. What their work is meant to contribute to in terms of objectives and so on, and top down, how you can keep track and steer, or start with plan, and then during execution keep track of what's going on the ground, like how many what sort of issues are actually working towards our objectives strategically versus are maybe a distraction and shouldn't be done or should be done later. And for that, I'm going to show you a few more advanced features. I'm going to start with conditional formatting. So this is what I think the name sort of suggests. Let's start with the due date sort of use case. I'm going to edit this conditional format now. It consists of always a condition, a format, and a set of rules. I can add more rules here. Didn't actually want that though, so I'll remove them. the condition is applied on the due date field, and the format is for the entire table row as opposed to the due date field or any particular column. And here I'm saying, you know, if the value, the date value is in the past, but I could also do specific time periods, all sorts of different things. And you know, if it's in the past, it should be red. If it's sort of approaching, or it's you know, in the next week or so, then make it yellow. I'm going to switch this on now, and that'll result in a few colored rows here. Other use cases are, you know, what do I have here? Unassigned warnings. So if something's unassigned, make it yellow, or issue types highlighting, you know, bugs versus stories versus epics or something. You can do all sorts of things here with this feature. So that's very helpful for reporting use cases. Speaking of, what's even more important is sum ups. I've enabled sum ups now for the table, so the entire table is wrapped into this sum up row now. There's all sorts of different sum up styles. You can see like progress bars and ranges and sums and so on, and you can actually you can edit them here in the column settings. So all sorts of status related progress bars, sum, average, min, max, and so on. And I'm now going to add a grouping. So let's group by assignee, and you see that now, you know, all the different groupings here, they could be by project, by any field or other data actually. They are rolling up across these levels. These levels are indented and collapse expandable. Speaking of sort of cascading and hierarchy, let's look at how that looks like, starting with the default hierarchy. If you're familiar a bit with Jira, what comes out of the box is an epic issue type level, base or standard level, and a subtask level. So that's cool. And for larger organizations, though, it's often not sufficient, and so what they need is custom structure. And you can create these structures here. These, in fact, are all my structures. Let's look into this guy here, and you see how they are put together. So each of these rows is a level. You can create levels here, and the level can have a different type: a hierarchy, grouping, sum up, or a grouping with a sum up. You see, this is a sum up. A sum up level, and these are hierarchy levels. There's a grouping by project with sum ups, and then there's further hierarchy levels. The hierarchy levels consist of two things. One, issue types. You can add multiple to it, or you can also add these wildcards, and an indicator, a field value essentially that establishes the hierarchical relationship to the parent level. So default parent linkage is just what works out of the box. So that depending on the issue type level uses in Jira, you might know there's different fields. The parent field, the epic link field, and the parent link field from the advanced roadmaps feature. You can change that to make it completely customized, though, by picking issue link descriptions here and establishing a relationship that way. Now, let's have a look how that looks like this. Let's actually collapse everything, so this is not quite everything. This is probably a good starting point. You have now, you remember I pulled in issues from two different projects in this sheet scope. One, those are my objectives from the OKR project, and in there I have my programs from a different project, and in there I have my initiatives, and in there I put a grouping and the actual work, and this is how let me expand all. this is how this can look like, and this is a very helpful sort of setup for on an ongoing basis, keeping track of what's going on in the organization or across departments at a very high level, and sum up certain fields and roll them up and so on. And on the other hand, for teams who, let's say, work on this, they can, this might be a request from a customer that came in, please, remove the secondary rocket. But and then you're tempted to, because you like your customers, to do that. But then you can also just look and see, is this actually contributing to this guy or not? And if not, maybe you don't want to do it. And so yeah, that's a pretty decent summary of how Sheets can help you eliminate other apps where you do similar things probably. If for some reason you still need to export your issues, for example, to look at to put like diagrams, charts on top of this data, that's not yet possible here in JXL. In Jira, then you might still want to export this data, this list and set of issues and fields values, and you would do that up here, export, choose the format, and that's still possible, of course. And it doesn't have an issue limit or anything like the native export feature in Jira. Cool. So that's a quick overview of how Sheets can help you plan and track. To sum this up quickly, what I've used here is Jira, of course, JXL, advanced roadmaps. We didn't really look too much into that, but JXL works very seamlessly with that, because it interprets the parent link field that's used by advanced roadmaps for hierarchy. And yeah, I suggest you look into Atlas. I don't think we would have the time here to demo that, but it's a very neat tool to keep track and do status reporting and so on as well. And this is how customers respond to this. This is from a gentleman who has used Jira probably for 20 years and still got surprised by how awesome JXL can still extend and improve his Jira experience. The use cases are really endless. What we just looked at was a little bit of a use case where I tried to show you how you can create a deep hierarchy for from objectives to programs, initiatives down to the actual work. So a strategic planning sort of use case, similar to that, also a budget or capacity planning with sum ups and so on. But the use cases are really endless. It's a table view, it's a spreadsheet view that you can do pretty much anything with, from more niche things to replacing essentially Jira features like boards and backlogs and queues. Cross-project queues are not possible in Jira, so people use JXL for that. Or making basic tasks like bulk editing faster, or exporting issues and so on. Do quickly want to mention that it's really as secure as it gets, because this is I think fairly unique thing in terms of architecture. We do not have a storage backend, so your data never leaves your site. So that's true for Jira Cloud, Jira Data Center and Server. The app is in your browser, excuse me, and it talks directly to the Jira APIs. So none of your data ever leaves your site. So that makes it really secure. and in terms of data protection. And in addition to that, obviously, we comply with any data protection legislation, and the whole app in terms of its architecture and infrastructure is highly scalable and performant at scale. Works for all Jira products, current and future. I should probably add the Jira product discovery logo here, but I think there is none yet, but you get the idea. It's working for everything that's built on the concepts of issues and fields. For all deployment options, for server, get in touch with us directly via our website, please, because that can't be listed on the Atlassian marketplace anymore. However, the cloud and data center version obviously are available for a free trial on the Atlassian marketplace. Check it out. If you don't feel like putting it on your production side and you don't have a staging side, just spin up a free Jira Cloud site and add JXL also for free. It's free for up to 10 users, so essentially free forever for testing. Just check it out, or find more information on our website, jxl.app. If you have any questions, there's contact sort of options on our website, but also write us anytime. hello@Find Software. And this is what's up next at JiraCon. I hope this was a bit informative and entertaining. And before we end this session, though, I will now actually join you. I have been with you obviously the entire time, but you have probably noticed by now that this is a pre-recording, simply because I'm traveling and was worried about my internet connection here where I am. And I'll take questions now.